Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So we're going to continue working on this thing here. We're going to take the whole back end off. And I'm going to take the two 3mm screws out of there. And then we're going to start working on the bottom side, which we need a 2.5mm. So we're going to take this guy out here and this one here. If you don't push too hard on it, those nuts usually won't come out of there. So I try not to push too hard because I really hate dealing with those little nuts in there. So there we go. And the back end just comes off like that. It's the easiest way, in my opinion, to take this thing apart. I put my nuts back in. Alright guys, we're going to take the cover off the diff. And we will take the 2.5mm, take the diff cover off there, and then 2mm, take the sway bar off. Which you don't have to take those out all the way. Just loosen them and slide that piece off. Then I usually use a pair of pliers of some sort. Just stick it in. Well, helps you take out all the screws. Sorry about that, guys. It's kind of dark in here today, so I take out the other 2.5mm screws. And pop off the diff cover. Note the orientation of your differential. The gear is on the right side. And just pop it out. Alright, there we go. So now we got this out, we're going to open it up and change the fluids on it. So in order to do that, 2mm, and I guess I don't have a towel over here, so I guess greasy hand is. And what I'm going to do, guys, is I'll pause the camera here, and because I'm going to let this sit and drain all the stock fluid out. There's really not that much on there, but what I'm going to do is turn this over and put it on a piece of paper towel and let it drain. Reason being is I really don't want any of that fluid left in there. I want it to be 200K. So just turn it upside down. Same thing with this one, just kind of turn them upside down. Go to the grocery store with the wife and come back, and it should be done. I will be using 200K or 500K, somewhere between those two, depending on what I find in the house here I have available right now to be used. I prefer 200K myself, but I think we've been chewing up a lot of tires. I think just to slow that down a little bit, I'm going to go to a 500K diff and try that in both front and rear. So as soon as this drains, guys, we'll which it's going to take a little bit, put a little air on there, it'll probably drain a little faster. But I'll be back in a little bit, guys. Alright guys, been letting this drain for a little bit. Didn't really have a lot of fluid in it to begin with, so just gonna wipe off the grease on the outside. One of the things I will tell you that I do personally is I always take the screw out when I'm getting ready to bleed it and put it together. Reason being is it seems to, if you put too much pressure on the case, it seems to make it actually expand a little bit and will cause a little bit of issues. So that's just my opinion. And then you got 500K. So the way I like to do it is just take it out, put it on a stick, kind of push it down in there, just work it with your stick, get it down in there real good. And some people will say just to turn it, whatever. No, it's all up to your personal preference what you want to do. Some people will take the gears out and put fluid underneath it, turning the gears now, forcing the fluid to stay down in there. So that one is done. And line up your holes. And then put your screws back in. And this is why I open that up, guys, right there. Do not over tighten these, because in my experience I've had to come back and loosen them up sometimes because they will bind. My hands do not work like they used to, guys. So what happens when you have arthritis in your hands. Okay. Give it a good wipe down. Clean it off with nice diff grease off your hands. Clean up the diff. I don't know, I just like everything to be clean. I'll put it back together. And then put your grub screw back in there. Make sure it does not stick out too far. That also I've had issues with over the years. I've even had to take sometimes and Dremel that little plastic part that sticks up off there a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to just check it, make sure everything's tight the way I like it with the manual tool. Okay, that's good. Put our lid back on. Put our drive shafts back in. Okay. And get this one up out of the way. And there we go. Differential is right back in where it was. You can take both shocks off, guys. It really doesn't matter. It's just kind of up to you how you like to do it. And basically, guys, we're just going to put this thing back together. You know how to do that. So we'll come back when we're ready to do the rest. Alright, guys, we got everything put back together. Almost here. Just putting a sway bar unit on there. And basically, we put our 4 screws in here, 2 here, 2 up top, and the back end will be back together. Alright, guys, we got the back on, so we're going to put our screws back in here. Okay, I know it's hard to see that, guys, but using a power tool like this, guys, just make sure you take it easy and don't overdo it. You know, that's the biggest thing, is you can easily overdo this stuff and start stripping stuff, and your car doesn't drive right or anything else. So just take it easy, you know, take your time. And like I said, those nuts, you put those nuts back on the top there and just take it nice and slow. Start your screwdriver before you put them in there, and they will stay in place most of the time. All right. Alright, so just a little review, finish up this film, this video. You know, we got everything buckled down here, everything's connected to the radio, receivers in here. So that's the back differential done. The V2's already got the better gears on it, like from the infraction. So that part of it's good. So now we're just going to start working on the front, which is a little bit different. You got to take the shocks off on the front in order to get the diff out. You can't just take one off like I did in the back. So top 2 screws here, 2.5 millimeters. Got 2 here, which if you keep your screws straight, these are longer. Okay, and that, which I like to keep pretty organized, guys, or try to. These are shorter, so your longer ones go in the front. Alright, so, and we will replace these at some point because these hang too low. So alright, lost one of my nuts, so we'll find that, put it back on, but we'll just be taking this off here in a minute. Alright, guys, found our nut there, so take out our top 2 screws, our bottom 2 this time. Okay, and change our bit here to a 2 millimeter. Loosen up our sway bar here. Alright, slide that off. Then pop the diff cover off. Okay, and then we're going to remove the 2 screws that hold the pins in for the shocks. Okay. Pull these up. And usually I just like to put kind of force them like that. You can use a rubber band or whatever works for you guys. And then I like to pop your diff out. Like I said, guys, watch the orientation and just change your fluid out, put it back together, and you're done. Alright guys, break. Alright guys, welcome back. We are pretty much got the diff done, and we are checking to make sure that our car is rotating the same way. Make sure our gears are both in the same way, because I'm sure we've all done it, put it in there the wrong way. If you haven't done it, you're a liar. You have. So basically we're going to put our 2.5 millimeter back on here, put in our diff cover screws, there we go. There's one. Another one. There's 3. Last one. Then we're going back to our 2.5. Gonna put our sway bar back into place. And last but not least, put the pins back in your shocks if you're going to do that. But we are not, because we still, well, I guess we actually are. We got to set up the ride height, but we got to do that later on after we get the car on the ground with tires to see how much we need to adjust. Right now, got to get these set screws that come in here all the way out. So we can get the right internal limiter, which what I do is I take the whole shock apart, guys. Take this end piece off here, take the nut off here, and I'll put usually a 4 or 5 millimeter aluminum or something that's strong internal limiter on the shaft, and then put it back on there. I don't like using fuel tubing anywhere because it's inconsistent. So that is my 2 cents for you guys that use fuel tubing. But one of the first things I usually do on these cars is get rid of these set screws. Because the reason you don't want to use those guys is your pivot point, like if you look at the back right here, your pivot point's right here and your set screws right there. There's just no way that that's going to keep a constant pressure where it keeps your arm exactly the same, and that little screw is going to wear into the material below it, and it's just going to just be uneven. And last thing you need when you're trying to run a 200-mile-an-hour run or whatever you're trying to do is for your car to not be getting traction because something's uneven on the car. So that's why I use aluminum limiters, and I measure them with calipers to make sure they are the same, because believe it or not, those guys in China that are making that stuff are not perfect. They do make mistakes, so not everything is 4 millimeters like it's supposed to be, as an example. But I think that's it for this part of the video, and we'll be back when we are ready to take these off. I'll show you guys all that stuff at a later date. Alright guys, we are going to take these off here, front shocks, and we're going to start working on the internal limiters. And that's my Westy growling in the background. He likes to growl at everything, guys, so. Alright, so we need... Buddy, quit. Gotta go get a pair of pliers. Don't have one out here. Alright guys, found our shock tool. Okay, usually what I'll do is I get ready to take this old fluid out. You take a paper towel and just set it on there like this. Dump all the fluid out. Otherwise you end up with stuff on your work surface like I did over here. So let it drain all the way out. And I'll push it a couple times, get all that fluid out of there. You can see the distance right here, kind of between the plastic end here and the cap here. So when I get done, I usually like that to be dead even with each other for the front. Alright, get you a 5mm wrench or nut driver. Take that nut off on the inside. And then pull that sucker out. Okay. You got a piston in there that you have to get out. So sometimes there we go, and there's your little washer on the bottom. So you got that set aside, that little washer. Don't lose that either, because those are really hard to find and replace if you need one. You don't really have to use it, but then your piston will flop on the shaft here. See how it's beveled right there. Okay, now alright guys, so we got our suspension done in the front, put our 4mm spacers in the shocks, put 37 weight oil in there, got the front and rear diffs done, and all we got left to do is we cut down the back. So we're going to put the back back on, and we will be, I don't want to say done with it, but ready to move on to the suspension ride height. Check that out and see how that works. So we're going to put these 2mm screws back in. Two in the center, and there's, you know, several different wings you guys can run on this, carbon fiber, whatever you know, whatever your preference is, but you know, there's nothing wrong with the stock old plastic ones. So that's just my opinion. So we will get this one buttoned up. And just gotta do that to the other side. Like I said, perfect pass from Ross Schifrin, his drive shafts, V2 drive shafts, stock ball bearings, stock complete rear end, which will end up cranking these way down, the suspension in the back, and then the ones in the front. It comes with a newer spring in it, which is a little heavier, so I'm not going to crank that down quite as far, but you can see the travels are reduced by that 4mm spacer. But thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.